Hello, I'm Sandra Dawson, and I'm recording this for International Women's Day 2023. It's based on a talk I gave to Sidney, Sussex alumni in economics and business back in November last year. My question is, what has ED&I, equality, diversity, and inclusion, got to do with economics and with leadership? The short answer is everything. But in order to speak for a little longer than that, I'll explain why I think this is the case. So what has ED&I got to do with economics? Decades ago, when I first studied economics, I learned some basic facts. One of those facts was that the basis of economic growth are three factors of production: capital, land, and labour. And in labour, in people, the key thing about people being able to contribute to economic growth is who is in the labour pool, what's the participation affected by birth and death rates and migration, and what skills and knowledge and understanding do they bring to the work that they do. And in this world, if we want to have competitive businesses, compassionate charities, and excellent academic institutions, as well as very, very good public service, we need to have a diversity of people in the labour market. We need to pull in all the skills that are available and all the knowledge and all the understanding, regardless of the backgrounds and the nature of people's lives, regardless of race, of sex, of gender, of disability and ability, all the characteristics that make up the wonderful rich pattern of human nature. If we want to be able to be competitive and build economic growth, then a diversity within our labour market is absolutely fundamental. And there's a huge amount of evidence now which shows this is the case. Now, what's it got to do? What has ED&I got to do with leadership? Well, leadership is about getting others to come with you on journeys that they wouldn't otherwise choose to come on because they're too difficult, because they feel they haven't got the skills, perhaps because they don't trust you to be a good leader. Perhaps they'd rather take their skills and knowledge and understanding elsewhere. But if you want to build the teams that will make you successful, if you want to build teams which will make for competitive businesses, compassionate charities, and excellent academic institutions, if you want that, then you want as many voices in the table as you can have. You want to have a diversity of views such that you will understand the world from different perspectives and so be able to tackle whether the issues of climate change, competitive advantage in the retail business, making the very best research activities in any university, then none of us have the whole answers. None of us have whole knowledge. In order to be able to tackle these things, we want as much diversity as possible. So ED&I has everything to do with economics, and it has everything to do with being a good leader. So what does it mean? Let's have a look at a few definitions. And I'll begin by sharing my screen, I hope, and let's have a look at equality first. And here we have a picture which identifies the difference between equality and equity. So equality is giving everyone the same opportunities. Here, to watch the baseball game, everyone has the same steps. But those who are shorter than others can't actually see the whole baseball game, but are required to look through cracks in the fence. Whereas equity, you say, well, I understand that not everybody coming to this particular circumstance is going to have equal opportunities. So what we'll do is we will adjust the step ladders. We'll adjust what we do in order to ensure that everyone can fully participate. And that's very, very good. However, we also need to take a third element here, and that is the element of social justice, which says that there is no need for special support or accommodation what we need to do is we need to eradicate systemic and institutional barriers such that the marginalized feel that they are belonging and included, and that there is a mindset and reality change. So in this context, you take the wall away. You would say the wall isn't there. You would build trust so that people wouldn't invade the pitch, and you would entirely allow full participation and inclusion in watching the baseball game, in having a view on the baseball game, regardless of the characteristics that one might have. And it's a very important graphic to show how, whilst equality and striving for equality and equity is very good, we also need to change our mindsets. And that, of course, is the role of the leader, to lead in terms of getting people to see things differently. So there we have a definition of equality. What is diversity? Well, diversity, as I've indicated, is making sure that you have a diversity of voices around the table, that they're not inhibited either by barriers or by discrimination or anything, and that they can really contribute fully to the activities that the workplace or the university or the home is actually engaged in. What is inclusion? Well, inclusion is something that people feel. You cannot mandate inclusion. Although many organizations say we're a very inclusive organization, that's their intention. But the whole matter is, how is that intention actually then translated into what people feel who are, as it were, being included and invited in? Although the doors are open, do they rather fear that if they enter those doors, they'll find a world where they don't really feel that they belong? And again, the role of the leader is to make sure that if you really say you value diversity and you really do everything you can to widen access and to break down barriers, then when people who are not like those who are in the dominant group actually enter, they feel themselves to be actually included. And the point I'd like to really stress in concluding this talk is that we need to listen to the voices of those who are not like us. Perhaps one of the most profound experiences of my life, and certainly in the last decade, has been to be a special advisor to the Windrush Lessons Learned review, chaired by Wendy Williams, which sought to say, what should we learn as a society and as government from the way in which the Windrush scandal was actually handled, where people who had the perfect right to be in Britain, because paperwork had been lost or destroyed, were not actually made to feel included, and indeed lost the right to rent, lost in some cases the right to work, and in some cases were threatened or actually deported. Now, whilst that story I can tell, and I'm shocked at the scandal, there is nothing like the voices of those who actually felt themselves to be discriminated against to tell their stories. And so as part of the Windrush Lessons Learned review report, we actually commissioned a number of short videos to hear the voices of those who were affected. And I would strongly recommend, and at the end of this talk, there'll be a reference so that you can go and look at the website so that you will really understand what it felt like to be part of the Windrush generation, much more powerfully than I can tell that story. So if we genuinely want a more equitable, diverse, and for people to feel included society, we have to listen to their voices. And we have to realize the responsibility to all of us in leadership positions to question when we hear language and assumptions that come from a majority view and which are detrimental to a minority view. It's essential that we as leaders question the language and question the assumptions and begin to see the world as much as we can from the perspective of people who are not like us. Now, if we can do that, if we can embrace the idea that diversity really is fundamentally important both for economic growth, also for social justice, then it means as leaders, we need to have a much more open mind, to be really, really keen to listen to the voices of people who are not like us. And that will not only lead, in my view, to greater social justice, but it will also lead to more successful organizations, to more creative activity, to better problem solving, and to contribute fundamentally to economic growth. And so that's why I took as the title of my question, what has ED&I got to do with economics and leadership? And I hope in this discussion with myself, I hope in this talk that I've shown why I think this is actually a very important case which we need to think about if we want to be successful.